Basically what I want to, what I can kick this off with. Now, this is back in 2009. Okay. Um, what was kind of neat was that's back in the infancy of Priceline. And I went on the computer to figure out airline tickets to get the price for that and get the price for a hotel. We got a really nice hotel, half a block from St. Paul's Cathedral, and we went from Philly to Gatwick Airport and took a train a half hour into the train station in London and took a taxi cab. And why I say all this is at the time when I figured out our total expenditures, it was less than $4,000 for the whole trip for two of us. So it's not an expensive thing to really do, but I do grant you it's a 2009. This is back in 2009. So with that, I will get us started here. And let's hope this comes up. It looks good. And we're going to do a PowerPoint with information and pictures. I want to invite, everybody can see the PowerPoint now, correct? And that's good. And people muted, which is good also. And I want you to feel free during the presentation to unmute and come in if you have a comment, or if it's a place you've been that you have a comment, or if it's a place you haven't been and you want to ask a question, feel free to do that. So again, this was back in 2009. Now, when we got to London, this was a week, and we decided not to drive ourselves because, number one, they're driving on the wrong side of the road, of course. And I spent all these years driving on the other side of the road, so I didn't want to make any mistakes. And we went with another couple. And number two is the London streets are sort of like if you threw spaghetti up in the air and it came down on a piece of paper, that's the streets. So there you go. You don't have blocks, you have spaghetti. So it's got to drive GPS crazy to navigate through London. But that's how London is spread out. And let's see, if you can see my pointer, I'm on the Thames with the pointer right now. Down here is Parliament is down here. Westminster Abbey is right in back of it. St. Paul's Cathedral is up in this area, which we were half a block from. And so to give you a little bit of perspective, Buckingham Palace is back here. So it's all centered around this area. The business district is off to the top right, what's called the business district. I let my wife in. I know you're doing it, Debbie, but I figured that would be proper. Okay, now, whoops, St. Paul's, most of these pictures, 90% or 95% of these pictures Heidi took. I had the video and Heidi took the photographs. And this is St. Paul's Cathedral, which was half a block from our hotel. They said, I don't remember if it's the fourth largest dome on a cathedral or the fourth largest dome in the world, but it's the fourth largest of one of those things. And the first thing we did was walk that half block to the cathedral, took a right, walked down a hill. I get to tell you a little bit of information here first. St. Paul's Cathedral, according to the official website of St. Paul's Cathedral, Diana and Charles chose to marry in St. Paul's because they were on a mission to become the people's prince and princess. Translation, they needed seating for a spectacle. St. Paul's Cathedral can hold 3,500 guests. Due to the specific design of the cathedral's dome, sound carries incredibly well across the whispering gallery, a walkway 30 meters up. Try it for yourself with a friend and see how quietly you can whisper to one another. To give you the perspective, we did this. We went up in the dome, and if one person stood on one side and one person stood directly across on the other side and you whispered, they can hear what you're whispering. So that did work rather well. And you take an elevator up to the top there. And this was later on in the tour when we went on a double-decker bus and passed by St. Paul's.
Jack.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we were at St. Paul's Cathedral, did you walk all the way up to the top of the dome?
Yes,
It,
yes.
we had both our sons with us, and that's where we discovered our one son had a great fear of heights because you could see through the stairs.
Yeah, yeah. If you had a fear of heights, you didn't like being up there. That's true. You're right about that. Now, if you walk down the hill from St. Paul's Cathedral, you come to the walking bridge over the Thames. It's the Millennium Walking Bridge, and that was built in the year 2000. So that is purely a walking bridge. We went over the walking bridge. Here, this is halfway across the walking bridge. You can see the London Tower Bridge in the distance. A lot of people think that's London Bridge, but it's not. It's London Tower Bridge because it's right next to the Tower of London. Whoops, let me back up. Here's the Globe Theatre. We walked to that from the Millennium Walking Bridge. We walked to the Globe Theatre. The Globe Theatre was built between 1597 and 1599 in Southwark on the south bank of London River Thames. After burning down in 1613, the Globe Theatre was rebuilt on the same spot in 1614. The second Globe Theatre was torn down in 1642 by the Puritans to make way for tenements. Third Globe Theatre, which is known as Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, was designed to be as close to the Globe 1 and Globe 2 as possible. A great deal of research went into the shape and layout of the original theaters and the type of wood and building techniques used. It is made of the same wood, green oak, the original builders would have used, and the timbers are fixed together using wooden pegs. There are no nails in the Globe Theatre. It's all peg wood and pegs. Of course, modern health and safety measures had to be incorporated into design, including the lining of the thatched roof and the fire retardant material. Now, you can't see the roof here, but if you look at the top of the Globe Theatre and see way up top, I think that's the top of a flagpole. The sun sort of prevented the fill-in of the roof, but it is a thatched roof. And this, in fact, is what the Globe Theatre looked like, at least this view of it. We were sitting on one side looking across, and we had a tour guide. We had a guide at the Globe Theatre who talked all about it. That lasted maybe 20 minutes to a half hour. And back to the London Tower Bridge, they have a boat shuttle that's free, and you can go up and down the Thames for free and see all these sites. So it's really magnificent. And this is going up in the boat to where the London Tower Bridge is. And the London Tower Bridge is a suspension bridge on each side, as you can see, but it's also known as a bascule bridge. I'll be impressed if anybody knows what that is. Any volunteers? A bascule bridge means that you have counterweights that lift the bridge in the middle. So it's like a drawbridge, but since it's operated by counterweights to open the bridge, it's called a bascule bridge. Oops, oh, there we go. This is a closer. Yeah, there we go. There's a closer view of it as we were closer to it at that point. This is on the other side after going through underneath. And to prove we're there, I guess, we're on the west shore, or excuse me, the east shore of the Thames there. And this is walking over the London Tower Bridge. And this is riding over. This is riding over on top of a double-decker bus. What we did the first full day was take a ride on the double-decker bus, and it was a tour of London, which we decided that if we toured all of London first, we would know where to go back to and what we wanted to do. So that was doing that, and they were called the Big Bus. That's the name of the bus company, the Big Bus. Now, whoops, this is upriver from the London Tower Bridge, actually downriver from the London Tower Bridge. This is the O2 Arena, And Michael Jackson was in fact slated to perform there just before he passed away. And this was going to be his venue of residency. I don't know exactly what venue of residency means, but that was to be that. And if you might remember, there's a James Bond movie, if you'd like James Bond movies, The World Is Not Enough. In the opening segment, Pierce Brosnan was sliding down the roof of the O2 arena. I can't tell you whether that was a stunt double or trick photography or what, but it looked good. And this is going back the other way toward Parliament. As we approach Parliament, you can see Big Ben and Parliament on the West Shore. Big Ben was completed in 1859. To give you a little perspective there, it's 320 feet high. Oops, and there's a close-up of Big Ben. And Big Ben is what it really is the clock workings inside the tower. I guess I could read that. Big Ben is the nickname for the great bell of the striking clock of the north end of the Palace of Westminster. The name is frequently extended to refer to both the clock and the clock tower, but officially it's called the clock tower, and the workings inside is Big Ben. The London Eye is directly across from Parliament, and we took a ride on the London Eye. It goes completely around one time in a half an hour, and you can see all over London from the top. And a little bit about the London Eye. It was, well, I think that comes here now. Yeah, it's 443 feet high. It's currently the fourth largest Ferris wheel in the world. A ride on the London Eye takes 30 minutes. The husband and wife team of David Marks and Julia Barfield came up with the idea for the Eye in response to a 1993 competition asking Londoners to design a new landmark celebrating the Millennium. I find that a little bit interesting. The Eye has 32 capsules, one for each of the city's 32 boroughs. More than 3.5 million people check out the Eye every year. The entire wheel weighs more than 1,000 tons, or well over 1 million pounds.
Jack, how many people are in a car?
It has a bench in the middle, so it's like being in a capsule or a little room. They're pretty much the size of a small room. So you have people sitting on benches and walking around. It's not like the Ferris wheel where you can get 6 people in or something like that. And you can sort of get the perspective here. This is one corner of one of the cars. And so you could probably get 20 people in a car pretty easily. And this is one of my favorite shots that Heidi took. From the top of the Eye down on Parliament, Big Ben, and see if my pointer's working here. Yeah, it is. Back here, if you can see my pointer, that's Westminster Abbey sitting in back of Parliament. And that's from the London Eye. That's Buckingham Palace. You can also see that from the London Eye. And this is still another view from the London Eye down on double-decker buses. There are double-decker buses all over the place in London. This is Trafalgar Square. I noticed that a lot of little groups gather around there, and it's named after Admiral Nelson from his victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. And that was during the Napoleonic Wars in 1805. It was the English against the French and Spanish. It was for control of the English Channel. And when they finally settled, everybody got to use the English Channel. I'm not sure why they had to fight over control of the English Channel back then. But that's who it's named after, Admiral Nelson. You might find this interesting. And Abraham Lincoln has a statue in London. In May 1914, committees from the England and United States had agreed to place a replica of the man, Abraham Lincoln, in Parliament Square to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the War of 1812. Ghent is in Belgium, and it was a Great Britain against War of 1812. Well, it was between Great Britain and the U.S. And that's the famous phone booths that you find all over London. And I imagine the phone booths are still there even with cell phones. Okay, then we're walking up to Windsor Castle. We had a really great tour guide. You can sort of see him off to the right here. I have video of the guy. He talked real fast and real loud, and he was very English. Inside of Windsor Castle, they have the biggest dollhouse in the world, and they also have a lot of art on the inside of Windsor Castle. And Windsor Castle is 1,000 years old. It was built in 1951. The Queen uses the castle both as a private home where she usually spends the weekend and as an official royal residence at which she undertakes certain formal duties. Every year, the Queen takes up official residence in Windsor Castle for a month over Easter, March and April, known as Easter Court. Windsor Castle was used as a refuge by the royal family during the Luftwaffe bombing campaigns of the Second World War and survived a fire in 1992. Popular tourist attraction and a venue for hosting state visits.
Hey, Jack.
Yeah.
For anybody who hasn't been, my recollection is it took us like an hour train ride out of London to get to Windsor.
We took a bus, and I don't remember how long it took to get there. That may well be. If you took an hour, that seems a little excessive, other than you might have took around. The train might have been a little bit roundabout as opposed to straight. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to me like it was that long of a bus ride. But it was a bus ride. I mean, you are.
It's not in London. It's not.
It's not in London. That's correct. That's correct. And another view of Windsor Castle. Whoops. Going through that kind of fast. There, I don't know if you can see them here or not, but there's a lot of gargoyles along the windows. I guess you can sort of see them. And then this is also Windsor Castle. You see this at Buckingham Palace, and you see this at Windsor Castle, the marching guys. Whoops. Stonehenge. I remember in elementary school and high school learning all about Stonehenge, and it's a place I thought this would be a great place to go, but I'll never get there. Well, I got there, and it's very interesting place. The big thing about Stonehenge is how did they get those big boulders there? And that's still sort of a mystery today. Stonehenge is older than all the pyramids in Egypt, more than 5,000 years old. Its construction began in 3100 BC, and the site was worked on for about 1,500 years. The site's main purpose still remains a mystery, but due to presence of Neolithic burial mounds, it's thought it was probably used originally as a burial site. Some of the stones are so huge and heavy, the stones measure up to 30 feet, 9 meters tall, and weigh 25 tons, 22.6 metric tons on average. It's a mystery how they got there. Stonehenge is made up of two types of stones, saracens and bluestones. Saracens are larger ones and come from the Marlborough Downs. The volcanic bluestones are from the Preseli Hills of Wales, over 150 miles away. And if you consider how long ago these stones got here, you wonder how did they ever get them there? We do know that the site was built with a sophisticated understanding of mathematics and geometry, as it is aligned with the rising and setting of the sun. The main axis of the stones is aligned upon the solistical axis. At midsummer, the sun rises over the horizon to the northeast, closes to the heel stone. These seasonal times must have been significant to the people who built Stonehenge. Another closer view of Stonehenge. Not only how to get the rocks there, but it must have been a little bit of a thing to get the top rocks up top there. And yes, I got there finally. And then we went to Bath. Another comment, when I said at the top, and you're not all were here, this whole trip, including airfare and hotel, using Priceline, was less than $4,000. And we got to do all these tours. These were bus tours, and they were fabulous. You had an all-day bus tour, and as I sort of remember, two of us together is like $150 in American dollars to do that. And that's what Stonehenge is. That's what the Roman Bath is. That's what Windsor Castle is, and some of the ones we're going to be doing. The Roman baths at the heart of the city of Bath are all World Heritage Sites. They consist of the remarkably preserved remains of one of the greatest religious spas of the ancient world. The city's unique thermal springs rise in the site of Bath's still flow with natural hot water. Visitors can explore the Roman baths, walk on the original Roman pavements, and see the ruins of the temple of Solas Minerva. Museum collection located next to the bathing complex includes a gilt bronze head of the goddess Solas Minerva and other Roman artifacts. The Roman baths attract over 1 million visitors a year, making it one of the most visited heritage sites attractions in the United Kingdom. And they were built in 70 AD, if you want to get an idea of when that happened. And does that look like inviting water to bathe in? Well, that was it. A street level is up top here where you see all the people gathered. They actually had to dig this out originally to get down into the rest of the structure. And there's the before mentioned goddess Solas Minerva's statue. And this is right outside the Roman baths. Here you can learn about how the hot spring was worshipped and utilized by Romans who conquered Britain in 43 AD. The Romans constructed a temple and bath complex in honor of Solas Minerva, a Romano-Celtic composite of Solas and Celtic goddess of healing and sacred water, and Minerva, a Roman goddess. And this is also inside the bath complex, and there's a lot of people giving little speeches in original garb, as this guy was. Now this is Leeds Castle, which is a very interesting castle. It's out on an island. It has lots and lots and lots of artwork inside of it, and it's very scenic. And for those who care about these things, it has a golf course right next to it. One of the most remarkable facts about Leeds Castle is that it was built on islands in a lake that is formed by the River Len. The River Len isn't really a huge river, as it is only 9.9 miles long, 16 kilometers before it joins the River Medway. Leeds Castle is often referred to as the Castle of Queens, Queens of Castles. This is for the reason that 6 queens had their primary residence in the castle during the Middle Ages. These were, see how many of these I could pronounce: Eleanor, Isabella, Philippa, and Hainault, the wife of Edward III, Joan of Navarre, Catherine de Valois, and Catherine of Aragon. Everybody heard of her. Catherine Aragon was one of the queens that made Leeds Castle her primary residence. Because of this, her husband, Henry III, expanded and improved the castle further in the year 1519. One of those interesting facts about Leeds Castle is that it houses a painting dating back to 1545, which depicts its famous owner, Henry III. The painting honors the meeting of Henry III with the French King Francis I in 1520 and is called the Field of the Cloth of Gold.
Jack?
Yes.
Is Leeds Castle in the town of Leeds in northern England?
I think it's outside the castle or outside the town of Leeds, but yes, it's, I would assume that it's named after the town of Leeds, and I'm pretty sure it's close to that city, but it's not in the city of Leeds.
The reason I ask is that my mother's grandparents came from Leeds, England, and
Okay.
we were told that Leeds is a good place to be from, far from.
Is that right? I don't know about that. I love
They
the
were
castle.
they were coal miners, and
Is that right?
when they came to the U.S., they came to Central Illinois because they were mining coal there.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had read that it's something like 6 kilometers or something that from Leeds, the town or city of Leeds, but it is named after Leeds. And outside of Leeds Castle was a nice park, and had these guys running around in the park. And that was pretty cool. People were standing around them watching. Then we got to go to the White Cliffs of Dover. And another thing I thought I'd never get to see. And it was a very interesting sight. It's you can see, I think I have this coming up actually, but we could see that day, we could see France across the English Channel. You could just make out the shoreline. It wasn't real close, but you could make out the shoreline. And the beach in White Cliffs of Dover is all stone like that. And I guess you can't see, I have like 3 stones sitting here at my desk from that beach. The tour guide says, go ahead and take a couple of them home. And there's so many of them there that I thought, okay, I'll do that. Heidi caught the seagull taking off in her picture. That was kind of cool. I used that as my desktop for a while on my computer. Nature has a way of surprising us with the exceptional things in its makings. The White Cliffs of Dover are one such surprise. It is an 8-mile and 110-meter high chalk-like facade, a result of Ice Age floods. The cliffs are located in England and are part of the beautiful coastline of Kent. On a clear day, you can see France from the White Cliffs of Dover. Luckiest are the passengers leaving and coming into France via ferry. They have a clear and close view of the cliffs. And Dover Castle sits above the White Cliffs of Dover. Dover Castle is about a 5-minute drive from the cliffs, sitting impressively above Dover Downs and the port, one of the busiest passenger ports in the world. The castle was a medieval fortification whose oldest structures date back to the 11th century. Although the site itself is thought to predate the Roman invasion, its location has made it a supreme strategic importance throughout England's military history, most recently during World War II. Then we got to go to Canterbury. This cathedral was magnificent. You're going to see some of the stained glass windows from the inside. And I wish I had a picture of our tour guide. It was this lady dressed up in very English clothes, and she walked around with a parasol above her head. I guess so you can see it. As I remember, it was a yellow parasol. That is me in the middle of the picture there with the stripes, carrying my my movie camera. Okay, there's 3 of the stained glass windows. And these aren't the only 3. They were all throughout the cathedral. A couple more of the stained glass windows. Those windows must be worth a lot of money. Yeah, this is something I never thought I would do. We took a beetle tour with this guy who was a great character. He's a little guy that's spoke with like a Cockney accent, and he was really kind of cool, and you can actually find him on the internet. This is the Abbey Road crosswalk looking to the east, and that's the Abbey Road crosswalk looking to the west. So it is that crosswalk, and we stood at the crosswalk off on the pavement, of course, and he told us all about the Beatles and Abbey Road. If you can see my pointer, that's in front of the Abbey Road sound studio, and I'm going to take you down there next picture, I believe. That is the Abbey Road sound studio. It looks like a regular house. In front of it, where I'm taking a picture from, is a wall where people wrote all kinds of notes on the wall. And it does say Abbey Road. I think it's this green spot there. It tells you it's the Abbey Road sound studio. But like I said, their sound studio isn't what you would think of as a sound studio. It just looks like somebody's house. And they even have flowers up top here in the windows. This is Paul McCartney's offices. And if you look down here, you can get an idea what our tour guide looked like. He was very expressive in his face and his talk, and very cool guy. And this was totally a walking tour around London. Everybody recognizes this, right? It's Buckingham Palace. We got lots of pictures of that. And there's Heidi at the gates of Buckingham Palace. And of course, you have to have a guard at Buckingham Palace. And there's a statue in front of Buckingham Palace. Whoops. And Buckingham Palace was completed in 1705. And the people that live there are, you ready? Queen Elizabeth, Prince Philip, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and staff all live at Buckingham Palace. And then toward the end of our trip, we went into the Tower of London. And the Tower of London is like another castle or fortress. It's not like one tower if you haven't really looked into that. Now that's called Traitors Gate, and you notice the water there. And for the longest time, I thought, why is there water in Traitors Gate? Did the Thames just come up? And that is off the edge of the Thames. But the reason there is because a lot of the prisoners were brought by boat to the Tower of London, so that's where they came in by boat. It's very shallow there. You can see the algae on the bottom of the water. The tower was founded by William the Conqueror towards the end of the 1066. The primary function was a military stronghold of the tower, and it didn't change until the 19th century. At least 6 ravens are kept at the Tower of London at all times, and yes, we saw them inside of cages. For superstitious reasons, the flock of resident ravens even includes a spare. Each raven has a wing clip to make sure they don't fly too far from home. 22 executions took place within the Tower of London. Traitors Gate was originally called Watergate because that is what it was, a means for King Edward I and other royals to get into St. Thomas's Tower by water. When the gate was built in the late 1270s along the River Thames, the tower was a residence for the royal family. Over time, the Tower of London was more and more commonly used as a prison for those accused of treason against the crown, and those prisoners were brought to the tower by water. The first known use of the name Traitors Gate was in 1544. And this is still inside the Tower of London. You can see there looks like you could take up residence there rather easily. This was like, it looked like almost like condominiums, old condominiums, if you would. And off to the right side of this picture, you'll find the crown where they guard the crown jewels. Somebody say something? Yeah.
Yeah. The beefeaters, who are the tour guides and the security people of the Tower of London, live on the grounds all year round. Them and their families live on the grounds of the Tower of London. That's where they live in the housings that you saw there too.
Okay, thank you. And we did go inside and see the crown jewels, and you're not allowed to take pictures in there, so you don't get a picture of the crown jewels, but they are there for the public to see. And Westminster Abbey, we walked by it. Again, it was in back of Parliament, off the back of Parliament, not directly, but not far away from the back of Parliament. And Westminster Abbey isn't really an abbey; it's really a cathedral. Does anybody want to tell the difference between an abbey and a cathedral?
The cathedral is the seat of the bishop, and abbey is where an abbot lives and works.
Yeah, an abbey. Yeah, an abbey is like a Catholic convent or monastery. That's right, and a cathedral is like you said. Now this is St. Paul's and Westminster Abbey are both Anglican cathedrals. Anglican is another name for the Church of England, and the Church of England had both features of Roman Catholicism and Protestantism. There are over 3,500 people buried in the Abbey, with over 450 tombs and monuments. For several hundred years, anyone could be buried there for a fee. Ben Jonson, or probably Janssen, a celebrated 17th century poet, was so impoverished at the time of his death in 1637 that he could only afford 2 square feet of space. He is buried in the north aisle of the nave, standing up. Buried or commemorated at the Abbey includes 17 British monarchs, including King Henry V and all the Tudors except for Henry VIII. Other notable people buried at Westminster Abbey include Isaac Newton, Edward the Confessor, Charles Dickens, and Stephen Hawking. And Stephen Hawking was the last one to be buried there. From William I the Conqueror in 1066 up to Queen Elizabeth II, nearly all English or British monarchs have had coronation ceremonies at Westminster Abbey. Edward V and Edward VIII are the exceptions because they were never actually crowned. Edward the Confessor began construction of the church between 1042 and 1052 to provide himself with a burial church. Find that to be a lot of people buried there. Go ahead.
I just want to, no, I'm not anymore. I just wanted to say I attended Easter services there at Westminster
nice.
Abbey. Yeah, it was really neat. I went over with Katie and Bob, and that was very, very special.
I'll bet. What since we walked by it and didn't go in it, what were your impressions inside?
I was sort of awestruck. I mean,
Yeah.
It was huge. Now it was Easter Sunday and we had to stand in line outside, but eventually we got in. We sat over to one side. I mean, I just took it all in. Just, it was almost too much. Although then I worried about how I would take communion because I'm not familiar with the Episcopal Church, and I wasn't sure we were allowed to, but I think we heard that yes, we were. It was Episcopal, so we were able to take communion. So
Very good, thank you.
And Jack, some of these folks are buried in the floor, so when you're walking around, you can read the names on the floors and the walls and down below, what you don't get to see, but it's pretty amazing.
I'll bet it is. Very nice. Thank you for your contributions. And this is Victoria Station. This seemed to be where the big bus would sort of where their headquarters, and also there's a trains come in and out of Victoria Station. And then you can see the tube. We got around. I already told you we didn't drive because of the streets were really like spaghetti, and driving on the other side of the road. But we got around rather well by walking, by the tube, by bus, and by taxi, and it wasn't a problem at all. And we did go into Churchill's underground bunker, which is here, and pretty much that tells you what happened during the bombing of London in World War II. This is where Churchill was, and the folks were to protect themselves. And
Yeah.
we're ending up, yeah, somebody say something?
Yeah, it was me. What
Yeah.
I found interesting about that bunker is if you went into the so-called war room, it was nothing more than a wall map with a strings and crayon marked around it. And when you think that's where they were guiding the war that was going on in the Far East, like over in India and places like that, and they had no communications to speak of. If the knowledge that the people that did that had of the area had to be phenomenal to make the decisions they did. It was it's a quite impressive room.
Yeah, very nice. Thanks, Bill. And some sites around London. Like I said, we did a lot of walking, and there's lots of taverns. We even, something I didn't have pictures of is we did take it to a pub crawl, and that was a night where we had a little bit of drizzle, but it didn't affect us walking around to the different pubs, and that was kind of neat. We had this old English tour guide, and he was interesting to listen to. Up top here is a random piano out on the street, and it's inviting anybody that walks by to play the piano, which is what this gal's doing. And then this is at Buckingham Palace down on the right side. I believe we were on a bus at the time when these guys came riding toward us.
Jack,
Yeah, go ahead.
one thing about it was a ghost tour, the pub tour we took.
Yeah.
And the one interesting thing was that the gas lights used to be lit by the gases from the sewers.
True.
That the city lights used to be, they used the sewer gases to light them. I found that kind of fascinating.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you. Yep, that's right. And these are real people. Again, sites around London. This guy here looks like Data from Star Trek to me. Every time I see that picture, I think of looks like him. But they had different people along the way that would dress up and entertain. And these guys over here, I don't know if I'd want to be in those costumes. And we also, this reminds me of it, but it's not it. We went into Harrods. We went in through Harrods also and walked around. That's near this area, but that's not it right here, but it looks sort of like this. And that should pretty much be it. This is the last slide. Another guy on the street. Okay. Any comments or questions?
Thank you for taking us back.
Sure.
For that well, the one thing I saw, I thought you might have on there, the British Museum.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Did you get to go in there?
No, I don't believe so. There was a few other places we went in, but I don't believe that was one of them.
Well, I wanted to go there so I could see the Rosetta Stone.
Okay.
Kind of what broke language open. And my memory was the first time I went, you could actually touch it. And the second time I went, it was all encased in glass. So no more.
You're the last person to touch the Rosetta Stone.
That's right. And if you see the movie that's on right now called The Dig.
Yeah.
I would love to go back so I can look for those artifacts and that guy's name, the archaeologist man, but that's because they're now on display in the British Museum.
Some of the places I'd like to go back to is the city of Bath, because we were on a tour. You did the tourist thing and you left, but they had the nicest like park along the creek where people just sat out there, and that was, to me, looked like it would be fun to just, go there and relax and stuff like that. And I also found it fascinating that in the gardens in London, you can rent chairs. Like you can rent a chair in it for an hour and sit and relax, and that way you didn't have to drag a chair with you. They had like little lounge type chairs that they rented out, and people were sitting in them.
Did you do high tea?
No, we didn't do high tea. Our week was really full. Did we go for 5 days, or we didn't go for 7, right, Jack?
I think we left. It was something like leaving on a Sunday morning, getting back on a Saturday night.
Okay.
So we were flying 2 of those days. We were flying, so we were there basically full days, Monday through Friday, as I remember it.
Yeah, what we did was with what we knew of London, each of us, we went with another couple. This was my 50th birthday present.
I was going to let you say that.
Well, it was my surprise, and another couple that we know came along. So before we left, each of us kind of made a list of our must-sees in London, and we planned our trip around that. But there was a lot that we could go back to see. We did go back to London just for 13 hours. Well, it was a layover going to South Africa, and we went back to the Tower of London, and that's pretty much all we got done because our bus was late. Remember that bus we paid for?
Yeah, and I hopped on back to Buckingham Palace and back on the London Eye with
Naomi.
With Naomi, yeah, Naomi and I ran around London for a few hours. Yeah,
I didn't do it the third time. I found the joys of a lounge. If you go on a long trip and you've never paid the money to go into a lounge, it's well worth it if you've been on a plane for like 10, 12 hours.
Yeah, real quick about that is we went to South Africa for 2 weeks around our daughter's wedding in South Africa. So Naomi went with us and she did the Bible readings and Bible passages during the wedding ceremony, which was cool of Naomi. It was her idea and it was nice. So Naomi's not here right now, but she did a great job. Anyway, back to England. Anybody else? Any contributions?
Yes, I have a question. On your next to last slide, there was a man in a picture frame, and he was looked like as though he was wearing silver paint on his skin. And I'm wondering if it's the same thing that I saw in Montmartre in Paris. They have people who dress up like statues. They hold very, very still, and they don't move, and they don't talk to you unless you put money in their hands. And then suddenly they become alive and they move and they'll talk to you. Is that the same thing that happened with that man in the picture frame?
I would say so. No, we didn't try the money thing, but he was still. He was not moving.
He wasn't the only statue. There were other statue people too. I just, didn't take some of them I took pictures of, and some I didn't. But there were a lot of that kind of statue thing going on.
Well, you'll have to go back and put money in his hand and see what happens.
Okay. We'll get right on that.
That apparently is an art form in parts of Europe, because I remember on a couple of trips that we were with Anne and the church group, depending where you were, there were individuals be dressed in character and stand along the street corners absolutely still, and you could do anything and they wouldn't respond. But if you caught them in a quiet moment or when nobody was around, you could see their eyes move or their head move, or they would change position. So it must be an art form of some sort.
Jack, thanks a lot for these slides. I was in London, but it was the mid-'80s, and so it was quite a while ago. And so it was a nice trip down memory lane for me to see some of the places that I had gone to when I was there. One of the places that I went to that wasn't included was St. Martin's in the Field, which is a little church, not as I recall that it's not far from St. Paul's and Trafalgar Square. I'm not, again, it was a long time ago, but I went there and I heard a chamber music program. And it just was so English.
Yeah, yeah. Wow,
Mhm.
nice. Very nice.
And when we were in London, we had a hotel room that was in a basement. I didn't know that they could do that. And our bathrooms were the tiniest sinks, and every space is just at a premium. I mean, I get it, but that I remember, and also the traditional English breakfast with baked beans. We'd never heard of that before.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a heavy breakfast.
very nice. Thank you. Thank you.
One other thing we did, we went to the theater district and we saw, I think I don't know if it's still there, but at the time it was like the longest continuing play, Agatha Christie's Mousetrap.
Oh,
And we went to see that. That was great fun. Yeah.
Mhm.
did you have trouble understanding? I had gone to, I think I went to 2 different theater things, and I really had trouble with the cadence and the accents when they're speaking from the stage. And I remember I fell asleep in the middle of one because
You don't get
after
closed
being out
captioning.
tourist, you're doing your tourist thing, and now you're sitting in this dark theater and you can't understand what's being said. Well, take a nap.
Isn't that what theaters are for, Kathy?
Yep.
It's an expensive nap.
That in churches, Bill.
I didn't say church, I said theaters.
Well, now everybody be over there doing the Bridgerton thing. And it was Downton Abbey. Now it'd be Bridgerton, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Well, thanks, Jack. It was an interesting. That was
Mhm.
I'm glad you all could contribute like that, because that's cool. Yeah, this is going to automatically shut off here in a few minutes. So we're on a time thing. But yeah, and anybody else have anything?
Did anybody go to Mont Saint Michel from England?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Not in 5 days.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the trick. I found that's the easiest way to get to Mont Saint Michel, and it's on my bucket list. I tried to get Joanne's soccer team there, but they eventually decided not to take the kids to play soccer in England. We had a British soccer coach for Joanne's team when she was, I think, 12. And the language was interesting. I'm pretty used to languages and figuring it out. Charlie gets more cranky about it. But he eventually overstayed his visa and was deported.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. He'd been going back and forth over the period of a year and a half. And
Wow.
finally they figured out that he wasn't still supposed to be here on a 2-week visitor visa. I think the soccer team was paying him under the table, frankly.
Oh gosh.
But he was really a good coach. Joanne enjoyed him no end.
The other thing that we didn't see is we met a friend of mine and his daughter in London. They just happened to be there at the same time, had dinner with them. He goes over every year to Wimbledon. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Did anybody happen to see Wimbledon?
No.
Went by it.
That would be cool.
I've been to Wimbledon and walked around the courts.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
When you see the number of people that go in there to watch a tennis match, and there's multiple courts, so it's a huge facility.
Right. They have a center court and then multiple courts. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yep. I did that on the subway, or the tube, as they say.
That's right.
And it's a long ride to get out there, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack, I was gonna say, I found it helpful that on the sidewalks or on the street, they have it painted to tell you which way to look.
Yeah.
So you don't get hit by a car.
Crosswalks, when you're near a crosswalk, they have these squiggly lines to warn you that you're near a crosswalk on the road too. Somebody asked why the squiggly lines, and we were told why. Anyway. Well, we're going to get shut off here in a minute or two. So thank everybody for contributing.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you.
Really great contributions, and appreciate that.
Makes me want to go back.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you all. And,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
well, hopefully we'll see
Bye.
you all later live in person without masks on.
See y'all.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye now. Bye, everybody.